pounded that June when the British launched their own attack in Flanders to end the war. It opened on the morning of the 7th. 19 huge mines containing almost 1 million pounds of explosives detonated simultaneously on the front near Ypres. At his study in London, Lloyd George heard the distant rumble and felt the shock. Then came a tremendous barrage from 2,330 guns and howitzers. From the British lines, 80,000 men rushed and soon reached their first objectives. But this early success was an illusion, and 3.5 months later the long campaign finally ended. Cost: 244,897 casualties. Gain: less than 6 miles. The British troops groused and made up more caustic poems and songs, but they did not mutiny. Those at home had also suffered during 1917 from severe German bombing raids as well as shortages in food and clothing caused by the enemy's U-boat depredations. Food queues and profiteering had become a national institution at the expense of nerves, but there were no riots. The British temper was frayed but not unraveled, and people could still joke. But behind the humor lay deep dissatisfaction. The workers were discontented with their lot, the middle classes felt that they, as usual, were carrying the heaviest burden, and almost everyone was growing weary of the eternal squabbling in high places. France, on that New Year's Day, was still trying to recover from the Nivelles fiasco. Although the mutiny had been crushed, the French leaders feared another if their troops were pressed too hard. The watchword was defense, the goal the lowest possible casualties. This state of mind was not only limiting but dangerous, since it was accompanied by a wave of defeatism and pacifism throughout the nation. Intellectuals joined with the bourgeoisie in an attempt to propagandize for peace. Romain Rolland and Henri Barbusse were among those authors who shared the fear of leading financiers that Britain would establish an industrial hegemony after the war. Traitors were also secretly working for peace with Germany. An extraordinary adventurer named Bolo organized a vast network of treason. Among those on his payroll was Senator Charles Lumbert, and the arrest of these two in September had helped bring down the government of Premier Painlevé. He was replaced in mid-November by Georges Clemenceau, one-time socialist mayor of Montmartre, Dreyfusard, premier of the Republican cabinet of 1906–09, and a staunch anti-German who had advocated strong defense measures before the war. He was a free thinker and free soul, unorthodox in private as well as public life. As a country school teacher in Virginia, he had watched Grant's men march into Richmond in 1865. Once married to an American, he was as attracted to women as Lloyd George, whose affair with his secretary was a known secret. Both men were fighters, and without much aggressive leadership, the war would probably be lost. For months, Clemenceau had led the campaign against the pacifists, and although many detested him, including President Poincaré, he was supported by both right and left-wing patriots. Everyone knew that his nickname, the Tiger, was apt. He took over with confidence, and his ministerial declaration electrified the nation with its ruthless brevity. Treason, he said, would be dealt with summarily. No more pacifist campaigns, no more German machinations, neither treason nor half-treason. War, nothing but war. He met with the Council of Ministers but once a week and became, in effect, a one-man government. Discipline and spirit were restored despite rationing of gas, electricity, and coal. Cinemas and theaters were shut down 4 days a week to conserve fuel, and the only museum in Paris open was the Invalides, featuring a patriotic exhibition of war trophies. Cafes and restaurants closed early, and the dark streets of the City of Light were almost deserted by 10 p.m. Yet these annoyances, as well as the scarcity of vegetables, cheese, sugar, and meat, were accepted by
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.